Hello, this is my project and the final presentation on Ishmael. I want to talk about how reading Ishmael by Daniel Quinn changed the way I think about purpose, responsibility, and my future career in social work. When I first started reading the book, I honestly expected it to be mostly about environmental issues or philosophy. But the more I read, the more I realized it was really about the stories human beings live by. The book argues that people are trapped inside cultural beliefs that they rarely question. Ishmael calls this mother culture, the constant voice telling us how we are supposed to live, what success means, and what kind of world we should create. One of the lines that stood out to me most was when Ishmael explains that people are captives of a system that pushes them to keep destroying the world just to survive. That idea stayed with me because it made me think about how many people today feel trapped, not just environmentally, but emotionally, financially, socially, and mentally. As someone who wants to go into social work, that really changed how I think about helping people. Before reading this book, I think I viewed social work mostly as helping individuals solve personal problems. But Ishmael pushed me to think deeper than that. It made me realize that many struggles people face are connected to a larger system and cultural expectations. Sometimes people are blamed for problems that were created by poverty, inequality, trauma, lack of support, or unrealistic societal pressures. This made me think about a class I took a few semesters back, and I had to write a research paper on homelessness. And a lot of people like to judge homelessness and homeless people. I mean, especially I've heard it, all my life from many different people. The minute they see a homeless person, it's, oh, go get a job. It's not that hard. This is your fault, and so on and so forth. That really aggravates me when people say that, because the truth is it's not just as simple as go get a job, and it's not their fault. Like I said, it's caused by poverty, inequality, trauma, lack of support, on unrealistic societal pressures. And that there is an unrealistic societal pressure. Go get a job. When, again, not to sound like a broken record, but it's really just not as easy as go get a job. If they don't have support, or people around them that can support them and help them, or they lack the mental health resources they need, it's harder to be able to go get a job and help yourself when you don't have support and you've been affected all your life by poverty and so on and so forth. In the book, Ishmael says that people often cannot find the bars of the cage. I think that applies to a modern life in a huge way. Many people are exhausted, overwhelmed, isolated, anxious, or depressed, but they do not always understand why. Society teaches people to constantly compete, work harder, consume more, and ignore emotional needs. People are often told that success means productivity instead of well-being, when in reality, well-being and mental health is the most important aspect of it all, not if you've got a promotion, or if you got this degree and that degree, and if you've done this and that. At the end of the day, everything comes down to you need to take care of yourself and your emotional well-being before you can even accomplish any of those things. As a future social worker, I want to remember that when I work with others. I do not want to look at people and assume their stresses or struggles are simply personal failures. I want to understand the systems surrounding them. I want to understand their environment, their experiences, their relationships, and the pressures they face every day. I want to be open-minded when going into the work instead of just having my mind set on one thing or being biased, because that's the way that I will be able to help them best. One thing I especially connected to in Ishmael was the idea that culture constantly tells us stories about what is normal. Ishmael explains that everyone absorbs beliefs without even realizing it, because they hear them everywhere. From the minute you grow up, you'll constantly hear these beliefs, and then it's embedded into your brain, so you think that it's normal when it's not. Through school, media, family, politics, and society. That made me reflect on mental health and social work. For example, many people are taught to hide emotional pain because vulnerability is seen as weakness, sort of like the saying, boys don't cry. Some people grow up believing they should handle everything alone. Others are taught that asking for help is embarrassing. Those cultural messages can seriously affect mental health and relationships. Reading this book reminded me that part of social work is helping people question harmful narratives they have been taught about themselves. I think social workers do more than provide resources. They help people rediscover their value and humanity. They help people feel heard. Sometimes they help people recognize that they are not broken. They are reacting to difficult environments, trauma, or impossible expectations. Another part of the book that impacted me was the contrast between the takers and the leavers. Ishmael describes takers as cultures that believe humans are meant to dominate the world, while leavers live with the understanding that humans are part of the world, not rulers of it. Even though this idea is discussed environmentally in the book, I think it also applies to how we treat each other. Modern society can sometimes become very individualistic. People are encouraged to focus only on themselves, their own success, and their own survival. But social work is built on the opposite idea. Social work is about community, empathy, dignity, and connection. That is something I want to carry with me into my future career. I want to remember that every person matters, regardless of their background, mental health struggles, addiction, trauma, financial situations, or mistakes. One of the biggest lessons I took from Ishmael is that human beings lose something important when they stop seeing themselves as connected to others and connected to the world around them. I also appreciated how the book encourages reflection. Instead of giving simple answers, Ishmael does not lecture the narrator with easy solutions. Instead, he asks questions that force him to think differently. That remind me of how important listening really is. In social work, listening is one of the most powerful skills someone can have. People often do not need someone to judge them or immediately fix them. Sometimes they need someone willing to truly hear them and understand their perspective. Ishmael constantly challenges assumptions by asking thoughtful questions, and I think that approach is important in helping professions too. This book also made me think about responsibility in a broader sense. Before, I mostly thought responsibility meant doing well personally, getting a degree, building a career, becoming financially stable. But now I think responsibility also means asking how my choices affect other people and the world around me. As a future social worker, I want to contribute to a world that values compassion more than competition. I want to advocate for mental health support, stronger communities, and systems that actually help vulnerable people instead of punishing them. I know social work can be emotionally difficult. Burnout is common, and the problems people face are often complex. But Ishmael reminded me that meaningful change often begins with changing the way that we think. The narrator in the book starts out feeling disconnected and frustrated, but through his conversations with Ishmael, he begins to recognize that many of humanity's problems come from destructive stories people accept without any question at all. That idea gives me hope because stories can change. People can change, communities can change, the way we treat each other can change. I think one reason this book affected me so much is because social work itself is rooted in belief that people deserve dignity, support, and the opportunity to heal. Ishmael challenges readers to rethink what it means to live responsibly, and social work does the same thing in practice. At the end of the day, this book reminded me that purpose is not just about personal success. Purpose is about contribution. It is about helping create a healthier and more compassionate world. Moving forward, I want to carry several lessons from Ishmael into my future career. First, I want to question harmful systems and assumptions instead of automatically accepting them like we're all taught to do. Second, I want to approach people with empathy instead of judgment, which is a very, very important thing to me personally, and a way that I've always thought. Kind of like the saying, don't judge a book by its cover, get to know the person, approach them with empathy and an open mind. Third, I want to remember that individuals are deeply influenced by the environments and cultures around them. And finally, I want to help people feel seen, valued, and supported in a world that often makes people feel invisible. Reading Ishmael changed the way I think about responsibility because it showed me that being responsible is not only about taking care of yourself, it is about recognizing your connections to others, to society, and the future. As I continue toward a career in social work, I hope I can apply those ideas every day, not only by helping individuals, but by contributing to a more compassionate and thoughtful world overall. Thank you.